Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by the 2017 URM Summit, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to spend 4 days with the next generation of audio professionals and special guests, including Andrew Wade, Kane Churko, Billy Decker, Fluff, Brian Hood, and many more. The inspiration, ideas, and friendship you'll get here are the things that you'll look back on as inflection points in your life. Learn more at urmsummit.com. And now your host, EYAL Levy.
Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. I am EYAL Levy, and with me is Mr. Sam Pura, founder and chief audio engineer at the Panda Studios, which he started in 2003, and if you don't know who he is, you should know who he is. He's worked with bands like The Story So Far, Hundredth, Basement, The American Scene, and tons of other awesome bands, and he's really, really well known for being just one of the best punk producers out there. And what lots of people love about his style is that it sounds modern and up to date, yet still natural and sounds like real people playing. He's also done some other things, like created the Waiting Room TV, which is a series that he's hosted at the Panda Studios. You can watch them via the YouTube account. And basically, it's live in studio performances with bands like Stray from the Path, Stick to Your Guns, Citizen, Code Orange, Balance and Composure, and lots of other ones. And he's also got the Best Friends with Sam Pura podcast, which is actually really entertaining, so you should check it out. Did I miss anything?
That's it, except it's Pura.
Pura.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine, man.
Dude, people get my name wrong all the time.
It reads as Pure, so it's just like everyone, but then immediately everyone like thinks it's Spanish or something like that, so then they go Pura. And then all my substitute teachers in school always would go, when they would do the attendance, they would go, "Is Samuel Pura here?"
That's what I thought. I'm half Mexican.
That's funny.
So I actually learned Spanish before English, so it's kind of like my first instinct is to read a word like that and think Spanish, pura.
Yeah, and also that it's pura vida, and it's not pura vida. You know what I mean? So people just, I completely understand. No worries.
So Pura.
There it is.
Man, now I'm gonna have to rethink everything.
There you go.
My whole life is now in question.
I appreciate that very generous intro there. It was nice to hear all that history.
It's all true, though, right?
I mean, it's all true, yeah.
We're just reporting the facts.
Yep, exactly.
So, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while. What's been up? What's the latest and greatest in your life? How are you?
I am solid. Thank you for asking. So I got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was in July. And then I just came back from my honeymoon like about a month ago now. And
have you been honeymooning since July?
Honeymooning, we started in September, so it was all the month of September, and basically like all of the month of July was like dedicated to the wedding as well. And
where did you go?
So we got married in a place called Sonora, which is like a gold country area in California. Yeah. Really cool fucking place where we stayed on the property and stuff. And then after that, we went to Yosemite, which I don't know if you've ever been to Yosemite. It's pretty much the most beautiful place in the world. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. And then like a few weeks later, that's when we went on the honeymoon and went to Spain, specifically the region of Catalonia, which is a fucking beautiful place. Really awesome art, really awesome wine, really good food. Did a little bit of time in France, drove around up there, had some wine, had some food. Everything was great. And that was kind of the gist of my whole Spain trip. Barcelona is the shit as well.
What made you want to go there? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just curious why you chose.
It's funny because it was because we had to choose a date for the wedding, and so the venue that we wanted was like it was like, oh well, we have availability in July. We're like, all right, we're getting married in July. And then it was like, okay, so then we're going to go on our honeymoon. Where should we go? And so my wife is like really into tropical places, but like that's all like not in season at the time and stuff like that. So she was like, let's go to a place where it's going to be perfect for the season. And so it was specifically Spain and like the southern like part of France that were like the fucking peak hours, and they were badass.
That part of the world is just like, I call it Perfectville. There's a few Perfectvilles. Like I feel like Southern California is Perfectville. I feel like Spain, south of France, and the Mediterranean are Perfectville.
Yeah.
It's just Perfectville. Everything there is perfect.
Yeah, they take a lot of pride in very simple work, which is pretty inspiring. They're all just really nice people. All the mom and pop shops, lack of like corporations and stuff like that is like really cool, you know?
Speaking of taking a lot of pride in simple work, don't you wish that that was a more common thing among audio engineers?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the funny things is like what everyone forgets is that they're always like, when you just start off, you want to fucking immediately like be awesome, right? But like in order to get there, you just got to try again. You know what I mean? So like, it's like the simple rewards of like satisfaction are what it's all about. You know what I mean? Whereas everyone else like thinks that there's a different destination, you know what I mean, that you're supposed to reach. It's like, no, it's the process of reaching the destination. You know what I mean? That is the fun part.
Well, the thing is that I've noticed that whenever I achieve goals or get to destinations, it doesn't change the way you feel. Like it's still you inside of your head. It's like the same person who made those goals and was looking to the future is the one who arrived in the future at the goal. And so that same mindset that had you looking towards something else still has you looking towards something else. So when you achieve a goal, it's not like suddenly you've arrived. What happens when you get to a goal is you see the next goal and the one after that and the one after that. So if you don't learn to enjoy the process, it can be very psychologically traumatic because you'll feel like you'll never accomplish anything ever, which is weird, which is not always true. I mean, you could be accomplishing a lot, but it won't feel like that unless you enjoy the process.
Absolutely. You gotta go through the struggle to feel the satisfaction of the reward. So
have you always loved the struggle?
I guess I've had to learn to love it. You know what I mean? Like it's funny because like even just doing shit like having Tyler around, who you know through the URM stuff.
Tyler Rodriguez from URM, shout out.
Yeah, exactly. He's been helping me out. He's a great guy. But like showing him all like the fucking, you know, patch bays and lines and everything that I have here, it's like, man, I do have like all of this dialed down so perfectly. You know what I mean? Like I kind of blow myself away sometimes at like how much work I've put into making things so smooth and awesome here. You know what I mean? And so it's just like every day that I come in, it's all about like the little small subtle details that just like add up to make such a fucking badass end result. You know what I mean? It's like when you watch like dudes write songs and stuff like that, you're like, fuck, man, how the fuck did they make that? Like, that's so sick. Then you start to layer it, like strip it down, and it's like, actually, it's really fucking simple. And it just took hours and days and fucking months to achieve the end result. You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those things where because you're in it every day, you don't realize, you don't realize how many little details went into, like, on the topic of running a studio that you built from the ground up and completely wired and learned every piece. Like, there was a time period when you did not understand patch bays. And so you learned patch bays. And there was a time when probably you were still learning them where they gave you a total headache and you wanted to probably throw them across the room. And, now with me and patch bays, I can kind of figure it out in my head, like what I want to do with a patch bay. But it wasn't like that at the beginning. And they used to scare the shit out of me. And I can think of lots of other topics that used to be that way too. Like I remember, something simple like the I.O. in Pro Tools. When I first started using Pro Tools, the I.O. menu used to stress me out, and I didn't really understand how it really interfaced with like a bigger room and inserts and all this stuff. And then, now various I.O. setups and templates are just in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it all by heart. I don't even think about it.
That's the funny thing is like all that shit is just like, that's the shit that I like love. You know what I mean? Like the annoying ass shit like that like people find tedious because like they're like maybe a songwriter who's just like trying to get an idea out of their head and like onto the computer real quick. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like I know all the ins and outs of those things like so perfectly that like it's just like, oh, you want to fucking like you want to record a drum set? Got it. I have all my 16 channels ready to go. Like, oh, we need to do this. Well, then we'll just do the one channel here and let me fucking patch that in through this. You know what I mean? Like signal flow is so fucking goddamn important and no one really appreciates it until like you actually fucking start making a bunch of fucking records and have to fucking start acting quick. You know what I mean? That's like the console thing too, is like looking at a console and just being like, I remember the first time I went to school and I saw a fucking console and I was just like, oh my God, like this is going to be fucking intense. But then you just realize it's just one thing duplicated hundreds of times, you know? And once you get the theory down of the signal flow, it all fucking, it just like, it makes the whole like thing just natural. Like it's not even about like troubleshooting anymore. It's all just about like plugging and playing for me. You know what I mean? Like everything is just so dialed.
Has it become kind of like visualization, pretty much? Like visualize, like, I don't know if visualization is the right word, but like this really, really great musician I used to know, this is why I say visualization, he was a drummer, one of the best in the world. He used to like tour with like pop acts and do like jazz stuff, and he's one of those guys, like just superior. And I asked him if he practices anymore. He says, I don't practice, I just visualize. And at first I thought he was being cocky, but then I started to understand what he meant, which is just you see it in your head and then you do it, or you hear it and then you do it. Is like it kind of like that for you, kind of like you just you have the job in front of you and you just kind of know how you have to configure the studio, or
absolutely,
what you need to do. It's almost instinctual at this point.
Well, like I've gone through like the nerd process of trying every single op amp in my preamp, you know what I mean? And like doing and like trying different cables and like mic shootouts and different saturation stages and all that stuff of like like it's so complicated when I like think back to it that it's just like, oh my God, how did I even fucking why did I spend a day like doing that? It seems so unnecessary. But it's like, if I'm just like, oh, I'm about to record a drum set, like I just know what I'm going to use. I have all my fucking gear ready to go. And that's where it's like, if I go to other studios, it always kind of sucks because I'll have to lug my gear there because like they won't have like as solid of a front end as I have. And then also their room isn't as badass as my room too. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I have everything so fucking dialed, like with the fact that I have a control room. I mean, I have a live room, and then I have a ISO booth with like all my guitar cabs ready to go. And I have like my other live room as well. I'm currently in my other control room while like there's a band in my West control room working on stuff. So it's just like it's super flexible. Everything is just like dialed. Like when band like I wouldn't call my studio a recording studio anymore. It's more so Sam Pura's production facility. You know what I mean? Like it's just like everything is like dialed to be plug and play.
Tell me more about that, by the plug and play nature of the whole thing.
Well, I mean, all my microphones are just always on the same stands, ready to go. Like I have my drum set like dialed, tuned, ready to fucking like rock on at any time. If I'm just like about to do a podcast, I have my SM50 or my SM7 that's ready on a fucking stand, like ready to go. You know what I mean? Like it's all just like all my tools like are specifically like set up to live in a space in the studio where I know how to access it like immediately. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do a podcast. Let me grab my podcast mic. Like, oh, I'm gonna record a drum set. Well, let me just fucking plug into these microphones that are right here. Like, I'm gonna record guitar. Well, let me just turn on my mic robot. It's ready to go. Like, everything is just dialed at all times. So that today, like, I'm working on a project where we're about to do overdub vocals and we'll reamp guitars, and all that stuff is just, they walked into the studio and it's all set up, just ready to go. You know what I mean? So that like there is no, just whatever the fuck we feel like doing, we'll just start doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we tell people that they should use a mix template, we don't tell them they should use a mix template in order to be able to give the same sound from one band to another. It's more for the kind of stuff you're talking about right there, like all your routings, all the non-creative stuff, all the basics, like all the stuff that there's no reason to do over and over and over. You put it into a template so that you can get straight to actually mixing. And it's almost like you put a template on your studio to where you don't have to deal with why set up mics every single time if you can already have them set up for you? Like, why plug stuff up every single time if you can just have it always plugged into the same place?
Exactly. And like the only reason that like people tear down and do that shit is because like someone else is going to use the studio, so they try to just like strike it and like let it go. But like this is my fucking studio, you know what I mean? Like I fucking do what the fuck I want here. And if people are gonna like record like, and other freelancers come in here all the time and use the studio, but it's just like I have all the mics like ready to go on the preamps. It's just like, oh great, well then here's like this dedicated kick mic, and here's this dedicated snare mic, and here's these dedicated overhead mics, and just use this and plug and play, and like everyone is fucking stoked. You know what I mean? It's just like how. It's just so simple like that. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention to you that always weirds people out when they like Tom Lord Algae, when we had him mix a session for me recently, like he was just like, do you do all your songs in the same session? I'm just like, yeah. Like for every single project, I've always done every single song in the same session. And the reason why is like, you know, I have a template that has my fucking inputs ready to go. It has my preferred like tracks. So it's like if I'm recording guitars and I'm stacking like fucking a bunch of doubles and stuff like that, I'll drag them under the tracks that they need to essentially like go into, and we'll sum them so that they can fit into my template of 48 tracks. You know what I mean? So like I always have like my inputs ready to go, my fucking buses are ready to go, my tracks, like I treat it like my session is my tape machine and my console simultaneously. You know what I mean? Like left is the farthest end of the tape, like the starting point of the tape. Right is the end point of the tape that you can fuck around with. You know what I mean? Like it's all, I think of it every single time over my session is that. It's just like my tape machine and my console.
So, you know, I think that there's lots of people who are smart people who do things like that or are starting. I think it's people are starting to understand that it really does help to try to make things as efficient as possible. He was blown away that you do that.
Yeah, well, only because he's just like, wow, that's crazy that like, and I think it was from a processing point, you know what I mean? Which a lot of people freak out about processing about it, but also like, I remember when I did a record in London, and one thing I always do is I consolidate all my files to the same start and end point. You know, I clean all of my fucking noises out of there. Like everything is fucking pristine. It was funny because like Tom Lord Algae was like going through all of my consolidated files to make sure there was like no noise on every track. And he was just like, I'm like, dude, I've cleaned them all. Like you honestly don't even have to do that. You could just use like a strip silence. It'll be fine. He was like, no, it's cool. Like I just want to make sure. But literally it was perfect. You know, it was pristine. Like I'm so good about my editing and my cleaning. So it's like, I'll just consolidate all the files so that if anything's missing, I can immediately just drag it in from another session and it will line it like completely perfectly, you know? Mm-hmm. And so, but apparently like all that space that is in between the tracks that I'm consolidating is adding more fucking, you know, RAM and adding more fucking file size and stuff like that. So I get it.
Not anymore.
Yeah,
that's and I learned this recently.
That's
the
cool to
whole
know.
idea of processing older versions of Pro Tools or whatever, that is a true concern. But now Pro Tools is intelligent enough to where it stops, like it reduces your CPU load when there's silence.
Got it.
In the tracks, like it stops processing that.
Well, that's fucking cool to know. Cause like,
yeah.
Another cool thing is like 32-bit float. Like, dude, you just clip everything. You know what I mean? Like, cause there is no clipping. So you just like drive into like buses into buses and it's all ready to go. And like and then if I need to like nudge things around, I can look at it and it's like, I'm like 27 dB over the fucking clip threshold, like that it's like compensating for. So I'll fucking like turn it down and, you know, zero out my board correctly. Cause that's the other thing too, is like I have the Euphonics controller, which is just completely necessary to my entire life of like working with stuff. Like I have it set up with parallel buses and like parallel EQs and stuff like that, where it's like if my kick like needs more top end, I'll just raise a fader. You know what I mean? As opposed to like pulling up the plugin and being like, oh, let me dial in like 8K at like 3 decibels. You know what I mean? Like I fucking hate that nerd shit. You know what I mean? Like I really like it to all just be like quick vibe. You know what I mean? Like, and all these like bigger mixers that I've always idolized and stuff. Like, I mean, like even like Tom Lord Algae, like when we were working at his studio, everything in a session, like on his console, it just lines up the same every single way. It's just like a really complete, like fluid mastering, like summing bus, where like he can open any session and it will basically almost sound the same because he's using very little EQ, if anything, on the board, very little like compression, but it's all the same exact routing. Like his bass is always on the same channel, you know, his kick is always on the same channel. Like everything will fucking get summed out to come out on those exact same channels, so he doesn't need to label them. You know what I mean? It's never different.
and it shouldn't be. And just all the really badass hybrid mixers that I've had on here, and all do the same thing, which is that just like that, which is that the same channels are always used for the same thing. They're always plugged to the same inserts. Like, it's just set up to just go. So in a way, it's kind of thinking of your console almost like a DAW.
Exactly.
In a way.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, another thing that was like funny too is like, I mean, I've sent out sessions to get mixed by other dudes before, and like, they like are weirded out sometimes by the fact that it's like, oh, you only have like a stereo room. It's like, yeah, I've summed all my mics. Like, that's how I rock it. You know what I mean? Like, I like work that way and I make these things perfect. So it's like, there's only like a stereo guitar track, a stereo like lead overdub, and then like a center guitar track. Like, there's only 3 guitar tracks, but it's actually 5 because there's on stereo interleaved files. You know what I mean? So they're on one fader, and like, that's how I make things. Like, as I want to basically go like between my 16 faders. Like, if I bank all the way to my left, it's like my master buses and like reverbs. Then if I bank to my right, then it's all my 16 channels of drums. Then if I bank to my right, it's my 8 channels of guitar and bass, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, I know exactly where I am if I'm just looking at my board, you know?
So what happens if you get something to mix and it comes in on like 140 tracks?
I just start summing them down.
Okay.
Yep. I'll put them in, like, it's basically like, so say like, you know, you get fucking like all these like vocals. A lot of times I always do overlapping things where it's like, you know, there's 4 vocal tracks because there's a main and a double, but then it overlaps on top of each other. So then it's duplicated. And so then you have 4 tracks. So then I'll just fucking drag them underneath the input tracks that I want, and I'll bust them that way, and I'll just put it on input mode. And then I'll just, as I play the song, I'll just record all those things to stereo sums, you know what I mean? Or use the commit function in Pro Tools now, which is fucking great. And then I'll just basically...
Can you believe they just waited till now to do that?
Right. Yeah, it's so fucking stupid. But I mean, I fucking love it. And so then I'll just hide and make an active the old track so that if I ever need to fix the stem, I'll just do it. But I just start committing on the, like, in the beginning, you know what I mean? And it's like, I have the sound in mind. I know what the fuck I'm going for. So I'm going to fucking start like compressing and EQing on the way in. Like, I know my fucking speakers. I know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, this shit is all just like, it's the back of my hand now. You know what I mean? So like, it's all just like a fucking methodical, complex thing that I don't even think about it anymore. I just come in and just some tweaking EQs and, you know what I mean? Like, stupid shit like that, because it's how I get the tone right before it hits the computer, you know? Very little plugin usage. Like, plugin usage is just like literally like pretty much just like a Slate like fucking VTM and like Slate like VCC or Crane Song Phoenix like on every channel, and pretty much like then L1s on things if I need like some volume or something like that, and pretty much nothing else. Like, so it's like when I gave like Tom Lord my session, he was just like, he was like, oh, it kind of doesn't really sound like the same as like your playback. It's like, well, I only have like a parallel processing of my distressors outboard and my SSL EQ or my SSL like on my stereo channel, and then that's it. Like, I actually don't use any plugins on the session that I'm giving you. Like, it is the actual session. Like, my session is completely dry. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, how long has it taken you to get to that point to where you're doing things kind of like that?
I've just always kind of done it that way, I guess. And like, you make
so
some
you always committed? Like, that was...
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Like, because I didn't have enough inputs when I was rocking like a 002 at first. I didn't have like enough inputs to be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking like chain my distressors later. Like, there is no later, it's now, you know? And so like, I would just be like, all right, well then I'll just fucking plug in through the distressors out of my preamp and then into this, and like now I'm compressing my kick and it's good to go. And then, you know, you use Nuke on one session, and then all of a sudden when you're mixing, you're like, I fucking destroyed the kick and snare. They sound terrible. I'll never use Nuke again. And then you like use like 4-to-1, and then you're like, that sounds like shit. And then I'm never going to use that again. And then I used 2-to-1, and then it sounded good. And so I've never used anything other than 2-to-1 ever again on the distressors. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's like, you just like learn from experience, you know what I mean? And you just got to go for it. And that's like what I was talking about earlier, is like how everyone's just like, well, how do I make it sound good right now? It's like, well, you fucking figure it out. You fucking try again until you get a fucking result that you're fucking stoked on, and then you fucking move the fuck on, you know?
Well, I think it needs to be said that you can't be afraid to fall on your face.
Oh, like, yeah, man.
You got to be totally okay with with failing a few times and maybe having a few things that don't sound that great.
That's kind of the punk rock like skateboard mentality that I guess like I harnessed from like playing hockey and like trying to skate when I was a kid and shit like that. It's just like, I'm not afraid to fucking fall on my face. Like, let's do this. Like, I'll go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, by committing, even if you commit to a sound that's not that great, like you said, you're not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's something about committing to a bad sound that will stick with you. It's like a trauma almost.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like watching Project Runway when Tim Gunn is just like, it's a make it work moment. You know, it's like, well, I've committed to this. I can't fucking redo anything else. And, or like, oh, like if it's so bad, I can redo it and like donate free time to this dude. But like, and maybe they'll be stoked about that or whatever, you know, like I've done that so many times where it's like, I fucked up on this. Like, let's just redo it, you know? That hasn't happened in like years, but that used to fucking happen all the time, you know?
Well, I just think that it takes a lot of confidence to be able to commit, and it's not a natural thing for people to have that. So it's almost like you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and willingly put yourself in discomfort in order to get to the point where you just know what settings are going to work 99% of the time, and you can just fucking flow with it.
Yeah, I think like what that requires is people being self-aware. You know what I mean? And like developing a sound that they're trying to go for, as opposed to like I remember when I did this Story Safari record up in Canada recently at Garth's studio. Like he had this assistant named Carl, fucking awesome dude. And so he was just like, he was like, dude, watching you work is like fucking awesome, man. I'm like, oh yeah, like what do you mean? And he's just like, dude, like I can't tell you about like all these students that I'll see who will just like it'll be their time to like record drums, and it's like, okay, and they'll just go on the talk back and be like, hi, yeah, can you play that kick? And then they adjust the preamp, and then they look at the screen. They're like, okay, that looks like a good level. Okay, great. Can you play the snare, please? Whereas like I'm spending like fucking an hour and a half like on my one kick mic being like, let's try this compressor. Let's try this. Let's try this. And then the drummer stops.
I thought that's how you're supposed to do it.
You know, yeah, exactly. Hey man, like, can you keep playing that kick? You know what I mean? Just like actually fucking getting sound and like making shit sound fucking cool and resonate with you, where you're like, this sounds badass. I fucking am ready to record. Yes. You know what I mean? Like they think that like part comes later. You know what I mean? Like, oh, when this guy mixes it, like all of a sudden it'll sound like fucking Blink-182. You know, it's like, no man, like you got to do that right now. And if you're unhappy with the sound, you got to fucking move that mic, or you got to fucking retune that drum, and you got to do something about it, you know?
Replace that drummer.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I do that.
Drummer.
See, that's the thing too. Is like then I started getting to that point of fucking replacing people at request, and then or like Captain Midnight thing, which is just like really butthurt, like, you know, really hurts people's feelings when they find out that they didn't do it, you know? So then I just started being honest with people about it, and then it created even more confrontation about it. So it's just like, all right, so now I just fucking start being patient, and I'm just like, all right, man, if you can't play, then we're gonna take 3 days for one song, and it's just gonna be on your dime. So let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get flustered about that and fucking hire other people anymore.
That's actually pretty impressive that you have the patience.
Well, I mean, I've had to fucking develop it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, but it's also more so like developing like the like not give a fuck scenario. Like I only care about making this sound good. Because like I used to respect people's time and their budget so much that I was just like, no, man, we got to fucking get this done. And then they were mad at me for fucking like pushing them to fucking get shit done on time and right. And so then I became the bad guy. So it only hurt me because I'm fucking like making less money, and then I'm fucking being the asshole. So like, how about I just be hella nice and take my fucking time, and then I just charge them for that time. And if they want to like bitch about the fact that they're not doing it fast enough, well then that's on them. That's clearly not on me, you know?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, me replacing people on records usually is at the request of the band.
Yeah, me too. And like lots of the confrontations that I've had with people where I've replaced them on records is because the band put me up to it. You know what I mean? Like the band was like, and like, because like they didn't want to admit it to themselves, and or like, but then they would like be like, what do you think, man? Like, what are our options? It's like, well, I can fucking play your bass for you, you know? And then they're just like, yeah, man, I mean, it does sound better. And then they don't want to tell the guy, you know what I mean? So then I'm the bad guy, you know what I mean? Or like, then fucking, you know, just like other things like that just happen where like, I just got tired of being like, all right, man. Like, but if it's like a huge serious concern, I'll just have a decent conversation with it, and then they'll be pretty much be cool. Like, it's like I'm working on this project right now, and like I'm playing all this guitar overdubs and all the bass, and like someone in the band is like butthurt that they're not playing anything, but they're like, it's just like, what the fuck, man? Like, if you want to pay for the time, that's fine. Otherwise, like, I'm donating my time to make this great, and everyone else in your band is happy about this, so let's just do this, you know?
So how do you approach that conversation?
I'm just honest about it. I'm just transparent.
Okay. So just be as upfront about it, but maybe just don't be mean about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, like you can do it, but it's going to take you a lot of time, and it's going to cost you your own time and your own money. And, or I could just do it for you and be your best friend and make it sound even better. So you tell me what you want to do, you know?
Yeah. And faster.
Yeah, exactly. And so as long as like I'm not trying to like put these people down in the process or like belittle them or whatever, like it usually goes totally fine because they just want to make the best shit possible within their budget, and they're limited because someone's not able to complete their end of the bargain. You know what I mean? So it's like, or their end of the fucking deal, you know? So it's like, I'll fucking step in and be like, all right, I'll fucking get it done for the price and for the time if you fucking give me your guitar right now, you know?
So let's talk a little bit about, since you started talking about this, I want to hear more about your process for getting drum tones. So
yes, please.
You like to sit there and get it right from the source, which is how I like to do it too, which is how I feel like everyone should do it. If you're serious about it, if you're serious about getting great production tones, you need to sit there and get it right from the start, and not worry about not like wait for the mixer to save your life.
So like when I first started like recording stuff at my house, like when I was fucking 18, 32 now, so you can do the math, I guess, right? It's been almost, 15 years or something like that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like 14 years or something, right? So, anyways, I had a drummer who was like leaving his drum kit at my house because I had like a little like studio in my house. And so I remember one day just being like, all right, I'm going to record drums. So I grabbed the drum key and I just started wrenching on drums and changing the tuning and experimenting with it. And like, I've eventually gotten extremely good at drum tuning, and like I think my drum sound great. You know what I mean? That's why I will stop tuning them and we'll move on to record them, because I think they sound the best they can possibly sound. You know what I mean? So it's like I've gotten really into drum tuning, really into like tuning drums to the keys of songs, like as best as I can. Like I'll find the range that these toms like to live in, and then I'll just be like, well, if their harmonic overtone is like resonating with inside of like, if I use this little lap keyboard that I have and just be like, bing, bing, bing. And it's like, I hit the tone, it's like, doom, doom. All right, perfect. There we go. Now let's move on to the floor tom, you know? So I get everything really in tune. And then my room is also like the fucking shit. Like I have a bunch of like reflective wood in it, and it's got like a bunch of diffusion. So it sounds alive as opposed to like a dead drum room. Like I can't fucking describe how many times I've recorded in some of the biggest rooms that are just huge fucking dead rooms. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, this is sick. This is bigger than my room. Then you hit the snare and there's just no decay. There's no ambience. You have to like completely fake it by like delaying room mics and, fucking distorting room mics and shit like that.
What's the point of going to a really nice room if you're going to have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, and now at this point, I like to make records in my studio. I've done like the whole try again. I've developed the opinion through my experiences that I really like my drum room, and I get the best drum sounds in my fucking drum room.
Well, I mean, it's the room that you know inside and out, that you have the most experience with, and that you have you have the most knowledge of. If A isn't working, we can try B. If B isn't working, well, there's this thing I tried that one time, so we can try C. Like totally. This, whereas in another room, you don't have those kinds of experiences.
Yep, and you're pretty much limited on time because you're already like, we're paying for a higher like quality room, essentially. You know what I mean? Which is so funny because it's always a toss-up. It's like, is their live room better than mine, or is their front end better than mine? Like it has to be like one of the two. You know what I mean? Because like it's like I can find a better live room than mine, but then like the front end isn't as sick as mine, or I can find a really sick front end, but then the fucking live room isn't that sick. So it's just a little gamble.
What do you think is more important?
Definitely the room. I mean, I can't get a good drum sound without my room.
Okay, so you think that a good room, if you had to prioritize gear versus room, you think a good drum room goes a longer way?
For my aesthetic, for my aesthetic of what I am going for what I like to hear with drums, I like to hear ambience and space. You know what I mean? Like I immediately, like, in my mind right now, I think about the digital bath drum tone from Deftones, like like just so much space and ambience. That's like, I like to hear a drum set in a room as opposed to hear my kick mic, my snare mic. You know what I mean? My cymbal mic. Like, I just feel so disconnected. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear like John Bonham playing drums in a fucking room, you know, and I want to hear the space. So it's like, if I go into a dry dead room, there's not a natural ambience that like really works. It's hard. Like, I need some sort of reflective surface to fuck with, you know?
I find that if you have a great room, you know, obviously with great sounding drums and a good drummer, sometimes you can have budget preamps and still get great tones. Whereas you invert that situation, you have great front end, great preamps and all that, but maybe the room's not so good and the drummer's not so good. You're not getting good sounds.
No, totally. And also, it's one of those, like, if you have really good gear and like shitty tones, it's just making your shitty tones sound even shittier because it's in higher definition.
Yeah, it's like you get to hear how bad they are in full pristine quality.
Absolutely. So
dude, I've told people that for years, which is like, if your tones are really bad and you get really nice gear, you're just going to have really, really detailed versions of your bad tones.
Totally. I mean, it's like, I remember the first time when I was like recording drums in my house and I had like the Behringer like 8-channel preamp, and I was like, man, these sound fucking good. Like, it's fucking, like, my drum set sounds fucking great, you know? And then I get some APIs and I'm like, oh, like, there's a kind of a difference, I think, you know what I mean? Like, but like, it wasn't just like, oh my fucking God, fuck the Behringer. You know what I mean? It was just like such a subtle difference that then I started like, I've always just kind of, that's why I was like one of the first dudes to like really fucking dive into the DIY market. It was just like, oh, you mean I can make my own fucking API preamps, my own fucking 1176s? Like, let me make them and let me test them. Like, it sounds just as good. Great. I'll sell the fucking real one and get 2 of these, you know? Like, I've always just been like, I'll just make, like, I'm fucking stoked on my sounds that I get over here. Like, I don't need like the Neves and I don't need the fucking like whatever's, like, they sound good, you know what I mean? Like, they're nice to use, but there's such a subtle difference that like moving a mic and like a different environment is 80% of a different sound, you know what I mean?
That's Matt, this guy I work with, Matt Brown, he's a drum tech engineer guy, really, really, really great. And we kind of have tried to figure this out, and we came to the conclusion that the drummer and the drum set is like 80% of it, and then like 15% of it is like the microphones, and then 5% is like the rest, like the preamps and the conversion and all that,
and the compression and all that shit. Yeah,
but if you want to make the biggest difference to your drum tone, like the most dramatic results, you change the heads or the drum set or the drummer. Like, or the room. That's like, that right there, that's the heavy lifting tone wise. So like,
absolutely,
if you really, really want to make a difference, it's not whether you get the Warm Audio 76 or the Warm Audio API or the real API or the Cappies that like you built me. They all pretty much, they don't sound identical, but like they sound close enough, and they all sound good. Like, they sound close enough to where what you put through them is what actually makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's like, you know, getting back to drums obviously is like, you know, fucking tuning is one of the big important things. And it's funny because like a lot of dudes are like, they love open snares, like no fucking muting or nothing on it, you know what I mean? Whereas like, when I first got into drum tones and shit, like I was really into that band Mute Math, and I was like, man, like their fucking drums sound crazy. And when I saw like them play, like dudes like Kit was like so taped up and like just like the lowest tuned thing and just like super dead and thick, and like Tame Impala does that really well too, you know what I mean? And like that's like a completely different sound, like in the production and the end result, like because I love so much more ambience and space, but I love like that style of tuning and shit. So it's like, when I hit a snare, it like if I'll figure out kind of the beat that's going on, and I'll make sure the decay like matches like the song and sounds natural, and my snares just are like smack, and they're not like boing, you know, like they have like no ring, they have nothing, they're like extremely short, quick decays, where it's like when I'll be like, when drummers will do snare rolls and they're mic'd up and they like sound, you know, and I'm ready to record, like I will literally fool myself and be like, that sounds like a fucking one-shot snare, like during that snare roll, because it's just like, it's compressed and it's like so consistent that it just is like, da 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 da, you know what I mean? There is no like variation or tonal variation. Like I really like consistent dead sounding drums because my room's ambience like actually is like long enough and cool enough to make them have like a really like sick sustain that sounds great.
You know, I think that people who hate muffling drums just don't know how to do it right.
Yep, I can understand that.
I feel like that's like how you play with the muffling and the dampening on a drum. You have so many tonal options with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just alive or dead. Like, it's everything in between as well.
So what I'll usually do is I'll fucking like I'm like moving my hands right now because I'm a hand talker, but it's like I'll hit the snare head and I'll fucking move my hand around it, and I'll just like wherever all of a sudden I'm just getting mainly the most like consistent resonant note where it's just like, you know, smack smack smack, and if I move it a little bit it's like shmoong shmoong, you know, like I'll make sure that I just like cut that out and I'll tape it or fucking
noise.
Yeah, I'm really good at those impressions, right? Shmoom, shmoom. Yeah, but yeah, anyways, like that's the same with like toms and kicks and stuff like that too. Like I've never really like muffled kicks with like tape or anything, but I have like the kick pillow. You ever heard of that, dude? I have the fucking I have two of them. Fucking awesome. I forget the guy's name who makes them, but he's badass. So shout out to that guy.
The one that stretches from front head to back head, right?
Yeah, and it's got like this. It's like it's weighted. Yes. And it has like a non-slip surface on the bottom of it. I think it's called the kick pillow. Like, and he made like a custom like orange one for the Giants for me. It's fucking sick. But yeah, so it's just like I like the drums to have quick decays. Like, you know what I mean? Just like a nice quick bright like tone, but then very quickly like the decay will immediately end, and you can kind of hear the sustain in the room just a little bit. You know what I mean? For just a quick second, like it sounds alive and quick.
I'm trying to remember if it's called the kick pillow. I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. I forget that guy's name.
I'm looking it up because I feel like we should give him a shout out.
Yeah, he's fucking cool, man. Kick Pillow Pro. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kick Pillow Pro.
Yeah. I forget the dude's name, but he's like a hella sick drum tech in LA, and he's a nice guy. He's cool.
Muffle Low Technologies. Highly recommended. I've definitely used these before.
Yeah.
And it's just good. I mean, I know you can just put a regular pillow in your kick drum, but like,
yeah, exactly.
This is way better.
Yeah, way better. It's way smaller too, so it's not like a huge, like thick, fluffy pillow. And then it's just like a nice solid sandbag. It's fucking sick. It's perfect, and it hits both heads, and it's great.
Okay, so you take your time. You get the muffling just right.
Yeah.
You get the tuning just right. What about sticks? Do you get involved with what sticks the drummer's using?
Not really, unless like they have bitch hands and they just like are hitting like a little bitch. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Then I'll like sometimes I remember like with sub metal drummers, like when they would do like I would have to go back and do fill passes and make them flip their sticks over like Vinnie Paul style and just play with the butt ends. You know what I mean? But then they fucking they smash their cymbals if you fucking have it like that. So you gotta have like you gotta just do the fill overdubs, and then they're really annoyed because they don't want to do the fill overdubs because they think it's fucking lame as fuck. Just like, dude, just be my best friend and just fucking flip your sticks over and hit your toms as hard as I fucking tell you to hit them, you know?
Man, it makes all the difference in the world, though.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I don't like to compress toms or anything because it's too much bleed. So like you have to like hit them right. Like and like as I'm editing drums, like if there's like shitty hits, I'll be like, let's go back and do that tom fill again, and I'll do it like 5 to fucking 10 times until I get the tom hits to be like 4 perfect transients that look identical. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, let me just say also that I think that one thing that people who haven't done this, I guess, at the level that you're playing at or the level that I've worked at, one thing that a lot of people don't understand, and this is what's good about an internship with someone awesome, is that you don't realize when we're saying like redo the fill 5 to 10 times until the transients look perfect. He means redo it 5 or 10 times until the transients look perfect. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Or if it takes 20 times.
Yeah.
But like you don't move on until it looks and sounds perfect.
Dude, and this is another thing that blows people away too. I edit in the moment. Like, I don't outsource my edits. I'm not like, okay, I'll record the drums and like, that was great, let's move on, and like now someone's gonna edit it. Like, no, I record the intro and then I edit it and then I record the verse and then I edit it and then I fucking record the chorus and then I edit it and then I record the second verse and then I edit it and then I'll listen to both verses, and if they're identical, I'll take the better of them and or I'll comp them both together and take the best fills and then copy and paste them, and then the chorus again, and then I'll fucking do the same between them. Like, I edit every single step that we do. I fucking absolutely make sure that we are making the best fucking decision possible before we move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you don't sit around and wait, and you don't assume that it's going to get better. Like, you get it album ready. Absolutely. Right then and there.
I put in the hard work from fucking moment one. You know what I mean?
Have you ever had musicians kind of resist that in the name of just trying to get things done quicker?
Not really, like, because they usually just like they hear the end result and they're just like, fuck yeah. But like, if anything, some dudes like who are just like, you know, who are fucking green, fucking fresh noobs will just be like, oh, do you do this to everyone? It's like, yes, I do this to every single fucking hit. I do this to every transient. I do this to every hit. I treat it like a piano that I'm going to fucking quantize in MIDI. Here we go. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, so, all right, so you go through the meticulous process of making sure that the drums are finished. Once you're done tracking, it's done. Like,
totally.
It's
completely edited. It's ready to go.
And it sounds great.
It sounds perfect.
Okay.
Yep. And like, and if I'm like going to be even more proactive, the last step I would do would like be slice toms up, do like fades and cut them and gate them, and maybe fucking like record a kick and snare sample of that kit and or a tom sample if I have to replace like a tom because we just couldn't get it right or something like that. And then I'll be like, oh great, now I'll just make a kick trigger real quick with this inside kick mic. So I have like this perfect fucking thing to use for gating if I need to gate anything, you know, if I want to like duck rooms or use it, I have it ready to go, and then it's fucking done. Like, so my drums are like quantized, they're fucking consolidated, and they have fucking like the toms are already edited and cleaned, and then I have a kick and snare trigger that is ready to go to open gates and or use as a close mic sound if I need it to fucking go, you know?
And how long does this normally take you?
It'll take me maybe like, I mean, depending on the drummer, it'll take like, I could finish an entire song in like an hour, you know what I mean? But I could also like, if it's going to be like a longer song with a bunch of takes and like a bunch of like different moments, it'll take me maybe like anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, like usually for a song.
And that involves the performance.
Yeah, and so I can slam through like 2 to 3 songs on drums, like maybe 4, like depending on the scenario. But like it's like day one, like I'll spend maybe like 6 hours fucking getting tones and then like 4 hours recording like the first song, and then I'll leave, and then the next day I'll smash through like 2 songs, maybe 3 songs, you know?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So 2 to 3 songs a day, depending on who it is.
Yeah.
That makes that. I feel like more than 3 songs a day is pushing it.
Yeah,
like,
especially
like when you're going full detail.
when I'm editing it and shit like that too. You know what I mean? Like it's like a fucking lot of brain power to fucking go through. Like my head will fucking hurt. You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So okay, so what's next?
So then I get into guitars after that, which is always just DI guitars. You know what I mean? Which some people fucking don't understand and have issues with, and then other people completely get it. But I prefer to record guitars with no amp simulators and just listen to just a DI guitar.
Oh, so when you say DI, you mean you're listening to the actual DIs when you're tracking?
Yes, I am not using anything else.
I have never heard of this being done like this before. I want to hear
plug
more.
In. I use my UTA cable.
Okay, so you're being serious right now. You're not trolling.
I'm dead serious. Okay. So I will use my UTA cable. It's set to 0, meaning there's no fucking resistance. There's no signal loss. It's the perfect pristine sound. And I'll go into either the Undertone audio preamp, which is just like set completely perfectly at line level so that there is no volume difference between guitar and the line level signal. It's unity. I've fucking done the tests. I've done the nulling tests, phase nulling. Like I have it dialed, you know what I mean? And then if I use my Avalon, I have to use a 1 decibel trim on the track to actually get it to be completely perfect with my A to D converter. So I'll usually, because I'm usually like recording drums and I have my 2 UTAs set up on kick and snare, I'll usually use the Avalon, but I prefer the UTA. Very small difference, really doesn't fucking matter, but I would prefer the UTA if I could, you know? So anyways, I plug in DI, and if anything, I will maybe use Waves guitar for them to monitor through. But after they do a take, I immediately just drag it onto a dry track with nothing on it, and I listen to only the DI. All I care about listening to is what the actual sound is that's coming out of the guitar. I want to make sure it's perfectly fucking played with no awkward like hitting the pickup overtones or anything like that. No fucking like missed strum hits, no weak strum hits, no fucking out of tune things. I want it to sound like a fucking keyboard. Like I want it to be perfect. You know what I mean? And so that's where the Evertune also helps out as well too, because then you can immediately just start stacking guitars and they're perfectly in fucking tune, and it's great. So I'll just fucking edit transient by transient, fucking quantize everything, get it perfect, consolidate that, and then eventually I will reamp those DIs.
Now, what do you say to people who say that here, like playing into the amp affects their feel and how they play?
They will play better if they listen to only their DI. Their amp is overcompensating and it's compressing and it's fucking adding gain and it's adding shit that is making them not play to their fullest potential. It's that simple. Like you can concentrate on the velocity of your strum pattern, what size pick you're using, everything about it, which pickup you're using, everything. Like I want to make sure I have gotten the correct, like for what guitar riff I'm doing for the song, I want to make sure I have the right guitar and that it is played on the correct setting going into my computer to ensure that I captured the best possible guitar and performance before I put it into an amplifier.
Amazing. Okay, so is this something that like once guitar players come around, they're like, damn,
yes,
that was great.
Yes, and it may take an entire fucking record, but usually like with the Evertune, it'll just be like, trust me, use my fucking Evertune. And they'll be like, but I have like this hella fucking sick guitar. It's like, fuck you, use my fucking Evertune. Like, we're gonna do this SG. That sounds great. Look
fuck
at how
your
perfect.
Hella sick guitar.
Yeah. We're gonna use my SG. It sounds perfect. Great. Now that my SG is a little thin and bitey, we're gonna fucking double that with my Les Paul, which is a little fucking dull and bit and fluffy. So let's do that. And now let's play both of them together. You hear the difference? How perfect does that sound? Great. Next part. Let's move on. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, I make sure it's perfect. You know what I mean? And like, I like when I listen to like, you know, strumming patterns when it's just like da 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 da. I want it to be like da 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 da, not like da 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 da, but like I want it to be the most perfect strummed thing. You know, I don't listen to things in half speed all the fucking time. Like as I'm editing and shit like that, like I just want to make sure that no one else could have recorded that better than I did in that moment, you know?
And so I guess kind of like with the drums, sounds like by the time you're done tracking a song of guitars, you know that performance is the shit.
Perfect. Yep, it's perfect. And when I reamp the guitar later, it's very rare that I will hear a mistake. And if it's a mistake, I can easily fucking copy and paste it from a moment. And or if I need to fucking like fix it, you just plug right into the DI and it's ready to go and we just pop it in and done. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's the thing is that like as you're recording guitar, there's so many variables that are being overlooked if you're just trying to like be punk rock and just like play into a fucking amp and throw some fucking mics on it and just be like, yeah, man, that sounds good. It's like, all right, is it the right guitar? Is it the right amplifier? Is the amplifier set at the right settings? Is it the right guitar cabinet? Is it the right microphone? Are the microphones going through the right preamps? Do they need EQ? Do they need any fucking compression? Like, I want to make sure that I have not overlooked any fucking step by just cramming them all together, you know?
It is incredible how many different variables there are with guitar when you really start breaking it down.
Absolutely. And like, that's the thing too, is it's like, dudes are like, oh, I prefer my fucking like American made Fender. It's like, play my $300 Evertune. It sounds just like your fucking American made Strat, because it is a fucking Strat, you know, like it sounds like a fucking Strat. It may sound like a little thinner or a little brighter or whatever, but it sounds like a Strat. That's all I need. Now play it perfectly. Here we go.
That's killer. And I noticed that you said, is the pick the right size?
Absolutely.
Makes such a big difference. People don't realize it sometimes.
Totally. I have two picks that I prefer, and they're my like Panda picks that I have done. And one of them is a huge fucking tortilla chip pick, which is what I use for like any like heavy palm mutes or any fucking like heavy strumming. Like, it's like, oh, you're going to do punk shit? Well, like, you're going to have to hit those strings hard like a fucking man, and they're going to be perfectly in tune on this Evertune. So use this heavy pick, you know what I mean? But then if you're playing some clean stuff, maybe it sounds a little too overbearing. So then I usually switch to the 73. So it's either the 73 or the 1.14 millimeter picks. Those are like, I basically like force people to use my two picks. I'm just like, yep, you're going to use this one. Here you go.
Okay, so all right, so you're then left with a perfect, crystal clear, sparkly, but badass DI performance.
Absolutely.
Do you then get the tone for the guitar tone before you move on?
No, like it depends on the scenario. It's kind of like I'll usually judge it by like what's the heavier lifting thing that we have to do now? Like, do we have like 10 more songs of guitar that we have to record? Well, let's just record all the DI for all the songs. Okay, great. Like, now what's the biggest thing? Well, we don't have bass, so let's just record all the bass. Now, okay, great. Like, before we do vocals, let's start reamping everything so that the vocalist can sing to actually normal sounding shit, you know what I mean? As opposed to some fucking Waves guitar or fucking DIs, you know what I mean?
Let's talk about your process for recording bass. I feel like people overlook the importance of getting an awesome bass guitar performance.
I am the best bass player I have ever recorded. I say that, and it's still to this day fucking one of the truest statements ever. And like, people are just
I'm in my top 5. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Because the guy in my band is incredible, and I've recorded a few incredible people. But like, besides those guys, I'm better than just about everyone I've recorded.
Totally. I mean, one of the best bass players I've recorded, probably the best bass player, is Kellen from The Story So Far. And it's like, he's one of the bass players where he's like so good that he can play over everything. So it takes a longer time to record him because we have to edit down all these really good ideas into something that actually works in the song. You know what I mean? So it'll start off like just like so overcomplicated and awesome. And it's like, great, try to like 70% of that. Like, okay, try like 50% of that. Okay, try 30% of that. Okay, try 10% of that. Okay, try 5%. Okay, try none of that. Yeah, none of it. That's the way that it works. There we go. That's the next part. You know what I mean? Like it's lots of like, I'm really big about following kick patterns and like making sure that everything hits together. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other biggest step that everyone overlooks, is they don't even realize. They're just like, oh, I play this guitar part, and then the bass player goes, I play this bass part, and then the drummer goes, I play this drum part, and no one ever goes, what do we as a unit play together? What is your kick pattern? Then my strumming pattern follows that, and it does this. My bass pattern will follow your kick pattern, and it will do that. And then his vocals will follow these patterns, and we will all sound like we are playing as a tight band. And this is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like, or they automatically assume that they should all play the exact same thing, whereas, lots of times bass lines are cooler if they're a marriage between the guitar and the kick drum. And
Absolutely.
so they play something that matches the harmonic movement of the guitar, but with, like, say, the pattern of the kick. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same thing, but they all have to work together like a section.
Yep, absolutely. It's actually really funny.
Like a rhythm section.
Because like after I do like the DI guitars, because they're DI, like they're so small sounding that like you need the bass. You know what I mean? Like, it absolutely sounds weird unless the bass is in there, and so then it makes it so easy to record bass, because it's like, all right, great, I want to make sure I get the most square wave looking fucking transients that are so fucking consistent coming from this dude's picking pattern, and like we're gonna go part by part, and we're gonna make sure that we match everything, and then we're gonna fucking copy and paste anything that is the same thing, and we're gonna fucking move on. So it's like super, like, again, DI bass, DI bass, part by part. I'll fucking, even if it like, depending on the shit and like depending on the sound or the fucking performance or the fucking song or whatever, I'll even record note by note and just be like, what's the first note that you play? And it's just like, oh, it's da 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 da. Okay, oh, only play da 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 da, and just do it really slow. Go da 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 da. Okay, great. And then I'll cut that up and then I'll fucking program it so it's like da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like I create bass lines by editing them and doing tab to transients. You know what I mean?
I think that the bass, especially for rock and metal, is very, very important that it is ultra consistent. Like,
absolutely. Like it has to sound like a MIDI keyboard.
Yeah, and it should look like a fucking square block, like you said. Like there should be, in my opinion, there should be no dynamics in it
absolutely
whatsoever.
Not, yeah. It should be the exact same transient, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, that's the reason that that like Joey or Joel will use L1 on the bass, and that's, I know a lot of other guys might not use L1, but they have their own method of limiting and then compressing the shit and then distorting the bass until end result is it looks like a block.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that there's room for rhythmic deviance either. Like it's got to be fucking perfect. Yep,
it's the bass player for Story does it really well. Like he's got like a really consistent hand. Like, and that's another thing too that I thankfully have is my guitar teacher when I was growing up was Aru Luster from Machine Head and now from El Nino, and so like. When I first took lessons from him, he was just like, yeah, show me some of your band's riffs. And I played him a song and he was just like, yo man, you're really good, but your right hand, all you do is just do down picking. So I worked on all these exercises with him. And when people play guitar, what I'm always critical about is the fact that they don't use their right hand correctly. It's inconsistent. It's not a fucking machine. You know what I mean? It's no man, I want this thing to be a machine. And with bass, there's this, I can't really explain it. You can only understand it if you play bass, but there is a way, and it's different on every single bass, but there's a way to hit that string where the momentum creates this, this recoil that makes it so consistent to be able to play that thing, as opposed to slapping the shit out of a fucking string hard. It's not doing that. It's about getting that momentum to be extremely consistent, And so so many players don't have that touch. They don't have that feel. They're I'm strumming the right fret at the right time. It's yeah, but you sound like shit with your right fucking hand, dude. You know what I mean?
I find that, obviously left hand is very important. You can't be pulling notes out of tune and all that, but the
you can't with my fucking Evertune, so who the fuck cares? No, just
exactly. Well, fair
pull
enough.
That shit, bend that shit, dude.
I used to call that shit death grip before Evertune. The death grip chords out of tune and all that.
We call it witch fingers.
Man, that shit would piss me off. But I find that the right hand is the big differentiator.
That's the tone. That's the sound.
Yeah. The right hand, and lots of people are more worried about their left hand when it comes to guitar and bass, but your right hand, that's what separates the band from the boys.
Totally. I mean, it's like saying I stayed up all night and I studied, that's the left hand. Whereas the right hand is just I'm going in confident. I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's a different attitude. You know what I mean? Hetfield sounds the way that he does because of his fucking right hand. You know what I mean? And Kirk Hammett can't sound anything like Hetfield because he's got a different right hand because he's a fucking soloer. You know what I mean? So he's got more gentle fucking vibe and feel, whereas Hetfield just fucking smashes that shit,
Oh yeah. He's totally the down picking alpha male, superior creation.
Exactly. Yeah. So Kirk Hammett isn't just well, I want to play the rhythm guitar part on the record. He doesn't give a fuck. He wants it to sound fucking heavy, and clearly it's going to sound fucking heavier if James Hetfield does it. So just give him your fucking guitar, and then you'll play the solos on the record, and it'll be great. Done.
Yeah. Well, it really sounds so different. When
Absolutely.
You have a maniac playing, maniac right-hand player versus a regular right-hand player. And I find that on bass, it's even more so.
Yep, absolutely.
I feel like the right-hand requirements on bass are that much more important.
Yep.
That can ruin the whole power of a record.
Absolutely.
So I imagine that you say that you're a better bass player than most people you record, probably because your right hand.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 dudes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also because like I'm extremely respectful to the relationship between the drums and the guitar, because I've manipulated the kick patterns and or the drum patterns and the strumming patterns of the guitars to play with each other. So I'm like, okay, great. It's I'm only allowed to hit these notes here at this time. If I do anything else, I'm walking all over everyone else, and that's wrong. Like it's not like I'm deciding the things to play. Like the fucking song and like the things that I'm supposed to play are literally laid out by the drum performance, by the guitar performance. You know what I mean? So that's where it's like a lot of people are like, well, that's subjective, man. It's like, no, man, like you could fucking do what you want to do with inside of these very small boundaries, depending on what the song is asking from the bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you've got these perfect drum, bass, and guitar performances. So then the next step before vocals is you actually get amps on everything.
Yep. Then I reamp.
And do you follow the same philosophy of you're not going to want to reamp again when the mix comes? Like, let's get
Absolutely.
it right
yep,
now.
I get it right. Yep, right from the start.
Okay, let's talk about that, because you've also got the robot. I remember you made your own robot. You didn't buy one. You made one.
I was one of the fucking... So that's the funny thing, too. Like, not to toot my own fucking horn, but to toot my own fucking horn, dude. I've definitely been, right ahead of some trends. You know what I mean? So it's like the DIY market, like, I was right before the DIY market bloomed. I was, like, one of the first fucking adopters of it. And then fucking, like, it popularized through Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. And the first time I ever saw a robot, which was through a fucking Rammstein fucking video. And I had heard about the robot before I even saw the Rammstein video. I was like, I need one. And then I saw in a photo a picture of Eric Valentine's one before he even did the Pensado's Place like interview about it. And so I was like hitting up everyone that I knew to be like, who could build me this? And so finally my homeboy Carrie was able to build it for me. And I had it for like a good 4 or 5 years before Dynamount even came out. Like I was the OG fucking mic dude. It was like me, Eric Valentine, and the fucking Rammstein guy. I was like the first DIY adopter. I
remember this. I can vouch. Sam is telling the truth.
Yeah, so good. It's so funny. So yeah,
So for anyone that's not sure what robot we're talking about, this is not a robot that makes you coffee. This is a robot that mics your cabinets for you.
Exactly. So mine's limited because it doesn't go off axis, which I actually don't even like off axis miking on guitars. So that's completely a pointless part for me. So it only goes left to right, forward and back. So like the way that I think about it is like a cone is obviously 360 degrees. So as long as you can go like left and right through the center of the cone, you're essentially covering the 360 degrees of what the cone is possible to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Essentially.
What a cool idea.
Yeah. So, like that. So like, I've gone down the fucking rabbit hole on fucking mics and everything, especially because when I got into the Kemper, I was like, I want to make the best sounding profiles ever. So like my preamp, so like I try every preamp, try every mic, and it always ends up being the exact same fucking thing. I like a 57 and a Bayer Dynamic M160 on guitar. I don't like anything else. I've tried the 57 421 technique. I even tried it again when I was in Canada because that's like Garth Richardson's thing, and I don't like it. 421 57 thing just sounds too thin to me and not thick enough. Like I want my bright mic and then my thick fluffy mic, and then if I put them both together, it sounds bright and thick, so it's perfect.
Okay, and
the Royer 121 is too fucking boomy, and I hate that mic. The only time I've ever made that mic sound good on guitar is when I flip it backwards.
Flip it backwards. What do you mean by flip it backwards?
So they have different frequency responses. The front of it is more dull. The backside is brighter.
Oh, okay. So. Okay, because it's a figure 8 mic.
Yeah, exactly.
So the back of the figure 8.
Totally. Also, I have a theory too about the Royer 121. So I think one of the ways that it was popularized originally was that Van Halen used a Royer 122. It wasn't a 121. It was the fucking active one, right? And that, like, everyone was like, oh shit, I want to get a Royer. So then they released the 121 and everyone bought those instead. And that's how that became super popular. But I think the actual better sound is the 122. I've never actually used it, but I've heard that it's a little bit brighter and has a little less bottom end than the 121 because of the active boost inside of it. So I assume that I would like that mic if I fucking use that instead of a 121.
Very interesting. I had never heard that, but that I believe you.
Right. I'm a nerd, dude.
Do you have any amps that you find you go back to all the time?
Yeah, so I'm like, my amps are like my fucking thing. I fucking like, and that's kind of how it's been. It's like people come here, they use my guitars, they use my drums, they use my amps. Like, I have my fucking shit dialed. Do you know what I mean? And like occasionally, like, someone might have their own fucking drum set or their own amp that's gonna sound fucking sick, but like my shit is my shit because I think it sounds the best. You know what I mean? So the only amp I would love to get is a Diesel VH4 or whatever, but the third channel is the only one that sounds good on that amp. So it's pointless to get a fucking $4,000 amp for one usable channel. You know what I mean? I top out at about $1,000 on an amp. I want all my amps to be cheaper than $1,000. So I get everything used and shit. So anyways, I got an orange 8140, which is like I find that the best amp ever because it's not too dirty and it's not too clean. It's the perfect in between. So if the guitar part isn't clean enough, then you just get a cleaner amp, like my Ampeg Jet or my Ampeg V4 or my Vox. And so then if that's not heavy enough, then I'll fucking use my 5150 or my Marshalls. And I usually will do, and I have an orange cab, a Bogner cab, and I have a cab that has greenbacks inside of it. And I have a 1x12 with a blue, the Celestian Alnico blue. So that's like my clean one. So I have the 4 different cabs. The robot's always set up. I always have 57 on the robot. I have an M160 on another stand, and I'll basically be like, okay, great, we're gonna record, like, now we're gonna reamp like this heavy fucking SG. Well, the heavy SG is like usually a little thin, so I'm gonna put it into something like fluffy, like my 5150 with a good bite, and then it needs like something a little bit cleaner to coincide with like a little bit more clarity. So then I would use the orange and the 5150 simultaneously. 57 on the 5150 with my orange cab, M160 on the Bogner cab with the orange, and I blend both of those together and I'll sum them to one track.
Nice. So you commit right then and there.
Right then and there.
Amazing.
Yep. And I'll move the robot until it sounds good. I place the M160 directly in the middle of the fucking cone every single fucking time. 57 usually is like it, like if you're looking at like an NS10, you know what I mean? Like there's like the huge white middle part. It's like not directly in the middle of that. It's in between that and the line. Like that's where I usually find that I like my 57 to be. Not dead center, just tiny bit to the left or to the right.
Okay.
So not on the line. Like I remember like on the Andy Wallace, or not Andy Wallace, fucking Andy Snape thing. It was like, oh, he does a 57 on the line of a cone. You know what I mean? I'm like just inside of the line, right in between the center point and that line.
That's cool. And I just think it's funny because this is just how this is accurate by my experience too, that you can try out all the amps in the world and somehow it always goes back to the same 2 or 3. Yeah. And for some reason, there's always a 5150 in there.
Yeah, dude, a 5150, it's so funny because I used to have like when I was first playing guitar as a kid, I had like a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier because I was like, I want to get a triple rectifier. I want to be Wes Borland. And they're like, fuck, dude, that's 150 watts. You don't want that. You want 100 watt. So then I got the dual and then I wasn't really happy with it. And then I fucking like got like a Marshall JMP and like a 9200 like power amp because I wanted to be Deftones. And so then after that, I was like, fuck it, like I'm gonna sell these because I'm now playing in a hardcore band. And I just went to like this used shop called Starving Musician here, and they had a 5150 for $500. And I was like, oh shit, man, like I know fucking Machine Head uses that. Like Aru Lester is like my guitar teacher right now. Like I'll buy this $500 fucking 5150, and it's like the sought after one. It's the block letter fucking original 5150. It sounds so good. It's completely original.
Mine was 450.
Got it. That's so funny. Yeah, like the best deals are always under $500 for an amp. Like literally every amp that I've spent less than $500 on is probably my favorite amp.
Man, best $500 ever spent.
Yeah, great amp. And so then also, the other thing is too, is like, I have so many pedals. I love pedals. And I just got so fucking tired of being like, oh man, this part needs like a delay. And then I'd like go run to the room and then have to grab like a one spot and plug it in and then get the cables and daisy chain it and then like blah, blah, blah. So I just built my own board. So I have like all of my pedals on this board ready to go, and I built the true bypass looper, so it's got like 16 channels on it. So it's like, and I then was like methodical about the signal flow. So it's like, it goes like from tuner to EQ to boost, and the boosts have a blend on it. So I can blend the amount of the tube screamer that I want on the DI. So it's like, I don't have to run specifically through the tube screamer. It could be 50%. And then like from there, it then goes into the fucking fuzz. And then it has like the things like phase and fucking all of that with blenders on them. So I can blend the amount of phase and or fucking flanger that I want in there instead of running them straight through. Like I have it like so dialed. So it's just like, all right, this is the clean guitar part. We're in the clean amp. It sounds like a little dry. Let me turn on my reverb. Let me turn on my fucking delay and let me tap tempo the delay. Great. Let me try a little chorus. Great. Oh, does it need a little boost? How about some compression? Let me do that. Like I have like my own console for my fucking pedal board. You know what I mean? So it's like, I will manipulate the DI to hit my amp perfectly. So it just sounds great. And then I'm ready to go.
So once again, you're not reinventing the wheel every single time.
Yeah.
And that's something with pedals that lots of times people do that. I find that they're always plugging them in for the first time.
Yeah.
Like always setting them up again. Whereas it sounds like with you, like you've got it down to like stations. Like,
yep.
This is the clean setup.
Yep, exactly.
These are the options.
Yeah,
I've figured these options out. They
exactly.
work.
I have recorded so many clean guitars in my life. These are the ones that people think sound best, and these are the ones that I think sound best. Therefore, I'm going to use them when I set up clean guitar. You know, like I just have my preference, and it's all based on experience. It's not like, oh, well, I read on the fucking URM forum that fucking Joey Sturgis does this, so then I have my fucking line 6 preset. Like, you know, it's like I've developed this based upon following my own fucking ear. You know what I mean?
Well, just for the record, we tell people to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not accusing you guys of that. Yeah, so good. But you know how it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know that when people are first learning, if they see us saying that someone did something, lots of people will immediately just try to go and copy it.
Totally.
And
put that secret into my template. Now I have that secret. Here we go. You know?
Yeah, but the thing that they don't understand, the other half of what we're saying is that this is what worked this one time, or this is what works for this person with their workflow. And you should study it and understand it, but then go create your own version that works for your workflow. Because it's not going to work for you if you just copy it.
Yeah,
it might work by sheer chance.
Well, that's the other funny thing too, is like the secret to success with audio is that audio is subjective. Therefore, you must follow your own ear and your own gut instinct and do what you think sounds best. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, and when you're seeing all these badasses and what they do, like, that's great. I mean, it's great to get information from great people and
absolutely
try out their tricks and all that. But their tricks, that the best ones are usually there after a decade plus or 2 decades of trial and error. And there's a level of understanding that you can't communicate verbally when there's a trick that you figured out, because it's all your experience. You know, it's your decade or 2 decades of experience all coming together to create this workflow or tonal trick. And you can't just steal that and expect that you're going to be able to utilize it the same way as some grandmaster, because for them it's the trick plus their experience and ears. So yes, learn that stuff, but it's not going to do the same for you unless you like incorporate it and then tweak it to work for your own workflow and make it your own. It won't work otherwise.
A funny thing that kind of like I've always kind of discovered is that, like, say, like I've found this to be true with Adam Nolly. Like, I've always been pretty chill with him. He's always been really nice with me, like chatting with me a long time ago when I first like was working on state champ shit and stuff like that. He was like, dude, your drums are sick. Like, what are you using? And then I tell him my mic signal flow, and he's like, holy shit, like I'm basically using the same thing, you know? And like, or I'll reach out to like other, and they're like, fuck man, like what are you using on drum bus? Like your drums just sound so good. And they're like, oh, distressors. It's like, oh, I use that too. You know, so it's like, it's funny because like what I identify with sounding good, and I'm like, fuck man, I wish I could get that tone. I wonder how they get that tone. They're using the exact same gear that I used to get that sound, and that's why I like that sound. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's funny because like I find the most similarities with my workflow with Adam Nolly, like just by chance, like lots of the same mic signal flow, like lots of the same like little like input signal flow, like it's. And it was like, oh, no wonder I like his sound, because like he's doing what I would probably have done if I had those same tools. You know what I mean?
Whereas, even that said, your productions sound worlds apart.
Completely, like, nothing alike in any way, shape, or form. And this is the thing too, is like there's three really important things that I focus on in audio, which a lot of people don't even really think about this, but the three things that I'm chasing at all times are: one, impact. I want to feel low end. I want to feel I want pumping compression. I want shit popping out of speakers and feeling big. Two, I want to hear depth. I want to hear space. I want to actually hear a physical environment that these things live in. I don't want them to just be this sterile sound that is coming out of air. You know what I mean? I want to hear that it was created in a space. And then three, I want to hear all of the details. Everything that's recorded, I want to hear it. I don't want anything to be quiet and buried. I want them all to be perfectly balanced so that I hear all of the hard work properly. You know what I mean? And so it's like when I listen to Adam Nolly's work, like what I hear is like I hear the impact. His drums sound big. I hear the depth. He has very good like snare sustain and very good depth. And then there's extremely good detail. Like that's why like when I hear his mix, I go, that sounds great. I wonder what he's using, you know?
Mm-hmm. Turns out it's the same stuff you're using. Go
pretty
figure.
fucking much. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can't say enough for, you know, what really matters at the end of the day are the ears and the brain who's manipulating the equipment. So, all right. So do you have like maybe like contingencies for when, say, you're getting the detail you want and the depth, but the impact's not there on a mix? So, or like, are you actually listening to it in like a checklist almost?
Yeah, exactly. Like not like I'll just be like, man, like, okay, like, it sounds kind of small. Like what does sound small? Is it the guitars? Like, is the guitars like too nasally? Is it too much bright top end? Or is it like a poking out frequency that makes them just sound like a mosquito? What's happening? Like, and so then like, I'll start investigating, you know, but like, it's usually, like with drums, for example, if I can't get enough impact like on the way that I have like my fader set up is like, okay, well then great, let me raise my fucking 3 parallel kick and snare compression buses that I have and see if that pumps them anymore. Like, okay, great, that sounds a little bit better now. Like, let me try my overall drum bus compression and compress like the kicks like parallel with the rooms as well and see how that sounds, because maybe I want more ambience or maybe I just want like close mic impact. And so then I get a good balance of that, and then I'll unsolo it and then listen to it with the guitars and the bass and be like, okay, everything sounds really big now, but now like my kick just like isn't hitting. Let me turn it up. Okay, that sounds better, but like it's too fluffy. Maybe like turn up my fucking fader that has the fucking parallel EQ, so now like it sounds a little bit brighter. Okay, great. Now it just is inconsistent. Okay, well, let's compress it a little bit harder. But now if I compress a little harder, it sounds like weirder. Okay, then let me raise the sample. Like it's I have them all laid out and ready to go to restore any of the issues that I'm hearing. You know, if it's like, oh, like I need more fucking like I want more like room ambience. Great, I'll turn those up. Oh, but it still sounds too pointy. Okay, well, let me just like turn those up and then turn up the parallel fucking drum buses, and now like that's sitting better. You know, like it's very quick. Like I would just bank through, and like within 1 minute of little moves, I have everything like sitting so that I have like the right impact, the right depth, and the right detail there. And basically at that point, it's like always I'll get the impact right, and then I'll get the depth right, and then it's all about fucking detail with automation and fucking revision notes. You know what I mean?
So it sounds to me like with that criteria that you set, it's not like there's not enough impact, let me reinvent the wheel. Yeah. You have your mixes set up already in a way to where you can add those things or tweak those things like very easily.
And it's not like the last thing I want to do is open up a menu of a plugin and be like, let me turn up 80 hertz at 3 decibels. And that sounds good. Like, I hate using like plugin EQs. I hate using like plugin compression. You know what I mean? Like, I love just having parallel stuff ready to go because I've already worked so hard to get my source tones that they should sound perfect. All I need to do is to use these parallel guys to help restore any impact loss, any depth loss, or any detail that is missing, you know?
Yeah, that's actually really, really killer. Thank you for sharing that.
That's how I be best friends with audio, you know?
All right, so you spend the time amping, you get the best possible tones you want, mix ready, and at that point you start doing your vocals?
Yep.
So you want the vocalist to like have like, you know, like you want them to feel like $1 million basically.
Yeah, I want them to sing along with their record, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
As best as possible.
So do you also get like a pre-mix going, or do your productions already kind of sound pre-mixed already because you took so much time?
Yeah, they already sound pretty like pre-mixed. Like for example, like when I did when Tom Lord Algae mixed like the new Story So Far single, like I had printed an instrumental print from like the end of the day of like reamping. That was just like, okay, great. Like, here we go. I'll just print this so that we can do vocals on top of it. And so like, that's all he had to like reference like as my original like mix. But even though it wasn't like a mix, it's just like control room playback. But like, even then, like the differences between our mixes are like so fucking minimal, even after everything he did, you know what I mean? It's like it sounds like the source material, you know what I mean?
Okay, I see. And okay, so as far as vocals go, is it a similar thing where you know which vocal mics you like, or do you shoot a few out?
Yeah, so it's either my U47 clone that I like had made for me, which everyone loves to buy and copy off me. It's so great. Everyone loves my LED mic, so they buy their own. So good. I was the first fucking fool to have that fucking LED mic too, everyone, you know.
What's
Robot and fucking
LED mic? What?
Yeah, it's like a huge U47, but it's got LEDs in it, so it just looks badass.
Oh no, I want to see
it's from
it.
a company. It's from a company called Cathedral Pipes. So like it was when the dude was like making DIY gear on Gear Sluts. Like that's what I hit him up because I saw like a post on it. I was just like if I'm gonna order a mic, I want it to like if I'm gonna spend money on a mic, like on a U47, like it tops off for me at like $2,000. I won't spend over $2,000 on a fucking nice mic. You know what I mean? That's way too fucking expensive because I get good vocal sounds with an SM7, which is fucking $400, right? So I'm like, all right, I'll order a microphone for $2,000 from this guy, and it's gonna light up and it's gonna look badass. And so that's like my main vocal mic, and it sounds fucking amazing. It's basically like it sounds the same as
it really does light up.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So so it sounds basically as good as an SM7, but just like glossier and a little thicker and a little brighter. But like I really hate bright vocal mics because I hate sibilants and I hate fucking all that stupid fucking smacky shit. So if they're so bright, then I'll just use the fucking SM7. So and I also like using the SM7 if I know that I'm going to have to like overdub vocals like later on. So like the new 100th record that I just did, like his voice would have sounded amazing on my U47, but we knew that he was going to do vocals at his home and we were only going to get some vocals done here because we chose to do it that way. So it was like, great, you'll use the same preamp and the same compressor here at my studio with the SM7. And then when you go home, you'll use that exact same fucking chain and then you'll send me those vocals and it will be perfect, you know? So it's like, it's the difference between an SM7 and a U47 and my U47 is like 2%, you know, and then it doesn't even really fucking matter. So either of those two mics are the ones that I usually use.
I was going to say though, if your U47 sounds 2% away from a SM7B, then it probably doesn't sound much like an actual U47.
So I mean, it sounds fucking phenomenal. Let's put it that way. And it's like my main drum room mic. Like a lot of people will always be like, your drums sound kind of mono because I use so much of that mono room mic because it's like it sounds the most accurate. It sounds like the thing in the room, you know what I mean? Like it's extremely like it's good. It doesn't sound like an SM7, but the difference is so minimal at the end of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. And what about do you track the vocalist in the room with you?
So I try to, but some dudes are fucking weird about that, you know. So, but I like the way that my control room is my window is right next to my fucking, like if I just look to my right, then it's the window. Because I hated when I would work at studios and I have to like look over the computer to look out the window. So I prefer to just look to my right and see the person. Yeah. So my window's just to my right so that I can just look through there, and the dude is usually standing there. So if he's not standing in my room, he's standing 4 feet away from me, and there's a wall and a window between us. You know what I mean? So it's like we're basically together, you know. So there's really no big difference. But I like them to be there in the spot because like I don't have to use the talkback. I can edit like and I can have both my hands free all the time, you know. So basically like, you know, I'll get as many takes as I need to get like get a good performance. If I can, I'll try to monitor with auto-tune effects enabled so that I can make sure that it's like real smooth and like not inconsistent. I'll definitely do all my comping and editing with auto-tune effects on. And then I'll fucking consolidate all those, and then I'll send those vocals to our boy Emil to tune for me.
Okay, so you get them, so you make sure that they're in the ballpark?
Exactly, in the ballpark, yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And sometimes I prefer to just like print the auto-tune that I did because it sounds totally fine to me. Like, I want to hear vocals in tune, you know what I mean? I want my vocals to sound tuned because because the records that I like are the ones that sound that way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And what are the, do you have any criteria you're going for in a vocal?
Consistency. I mean, there's a good quote from that dude, Ku Carell, who's a really good vocal producer, but honesty. The listener always identifies with honesty and passion. So I want them to sound authentic. You know what I mean? I don't want them to sound like a dude singing in front of a mic. I want it to sound like the vocal performance that the song wanted to have, you know? So like a lot of times I'm just like, come on, man, fucking like quit being a pussy, fucking yell, you know what I mean? Or like, come on, man, like fucking hold it smooth at the end, you know? Like I'm like extremely demanding and vocal with like when I'm recording vocals, you know what I mean? So that's why I like to have them in the control room with me, because it's just easy to talk back and forth the whole time. Like I remember when I watched the Lamb of God videos when I was like in high school, and I was like, dude, that guy Machine is so fucking badass. I love how he's just like so nuts, and it's just like, no man, sing it like this. It needs to be like, you know, like just like not being afraid to be that guy. Like I sing just as much as my singers, or you know, like I have a terrible sounding voice, but I can hit notes perfectly, and I can demonstrate to people and be like, no, at the end you're waving instead of going like I need you to go and just hold it steady, you know, like shit like that. And like it's really just like making sure that their vocal performance works inside of auto-tune's limits, you know what I mean? So it's like, don't be doing weird waving stuff, don't be doing weird vibratos, like make your voice sound as natural as possible as it can with inside of sounding super tuned, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's the Drake effect, it's singing with auto-tune on, you know?
So, and contrary to lots of popular belief, auto-tune doesn't sound like anything unless you push its limits. Exactly.
Like I don't want to hear it working. I want the vocal performance to be so right that I'm not hearing auto-tune working, and that's how I know I got the right performance. You know what I mean? If I hear it and if it's glitching, it's because the vocal performance is wrong, and you cannot make that sound natural when you tune, you know? So it's like at the end of the day, when I play back my vocals and I have auto-tune EFX engaged, they sound like perfect vocals in tune, you know what I mean? And vocal line and fucking revoice is real good. Like I'm fucking religious about that shit, you know what I mean?
Love it.
Cutting out fucking breaths, cutting out all that shit. My vocals are fucking pristine, you know? And usually my fucking chain is usually pretty much the exact same. It's mic into undertone audio preamp into 1176 into LA3A. That's it, nothing else.
That's
I don't even use EQ.
chain.
I don't even like, people are like, what EQ do you use on vocals? I don't use EQ on vocals. I haven't used EQ on vocals. Like, I can't even think about it. I can't even think about a time that I was like, my vocal isn't bright enough. Let me turn it up the brightness. You know what I mean? It's like, let me de-ess this and like get this right. And like, if they sound thin, then I'll saturate some stage of the compression or the preamp to get it to sound thick and glossy and smooth to me, you know?
Makes perfect sense. I mean, I find that using harmonics is a great way to EQ things without using EQ anyways.
Yep.
It's like, you know, you want things to sound thicker or sometimes brighter or whatever. If you dial distortions in well,
Yep.
you don't even need to use EQ.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's just, I use a different mic, you know what I mean? Or fucking go into a thicker compressor or like a snappier one, you know what I mean? Like, so like I make the choices to make sure that what's coming into the computer sounds good to me, you know what I mean? And like, that's the other thing too, is like, I fucking avoid plugins like the plague. Like if I'm using plugins, like I like them to be stupid things, like an API 550 EQ or like an L1 or RVox or like RX, you know what I mean? Or like CLA guitars so I can use some effects, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to like set up a bus and like then create a send and choose how much of my send is going to my bus. Like it's just like I want it to be very fucking simple and very like I did everything I could with all of my external devices to make this sound perfect. Now I need to use some in the box thing to achieve this thing. I want to use the simplest, most dumb version of that so I can get there. Not now, right the fuck now.
Okay. I like that. I really, really like your philosophy. I wish more people spent the time they needed to get things right from the just from the get-go, and not rely on a later part of the process or somebody else to come in and rescue it. It's always better.
Totally.
Like, even if someone else is mixing it, as a mixer, it's always better if what you have delivered to you sounds amazing, just faders up.
See, that's one of the funny things too, is like, this is where I started to run into a lot of problems when I was like after, my records started doing well, and you have records like Story out there, and then you have records like State Champs and records like Basement and stuff like that. And people are like, dude, I want Sam to mix my record. And so then I'm like, great, man. I'll fucking mix your 10 songs for $6,000. Like, that's a great price. And then they send me the most shot fucking material. And then I do the best I can with the tools that I have in my computer. And then they're like, this doesn't sound anything like the Story so far. It's like, no, because what you're referencing is my fucking production. It's not my fucking mixing. My mixing is my engineering. You know what I mean? Like, I have engineered my record to play back in my Pro Tools the way I want it to sound. You know what I mean? I'm not relying on any of this software to get my fucking sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I have a few questions here from our audience for you.
Yes, please.
I would like to ask you them. Okay, cool. Here goes. First one from Sean O'Shaughnessy. I'd love to hear more details on the gears Sam has made, more info on the cabs and amps along with the pre's and mods done to them if he can without giving away his top secrets.
All right, well, there is no top secrets. That's great.
Yeah, I didn't think there were.
So, I mean, I got all my Cappy preamps just have GAR 2520 op amps on them. Those are my favorite. I think they sound the best. So I just use, if I could have any one preamp for my studio, it would be the Undertone Audio preamp. That's the best preamp ever. It sounds the best. It's hell expensive, but my friend Jeremy Worst has 8 of them now because I was like, you got to try this preamp. It's great. So that dude Jason Livermore has fucking 12 of them or something like that. But anyways, sounds fucking awesome. So Cappy preamps, Undertone Audio preamps, those are my favorite preamps. As far as compressors and everything, I made my LA3As, I made my 1176s. My 1176s are a little bit modified. They have different caps in there, and I did listening tests for some different brands to see which ones sound best. And so that's there. It's basically the exact same as everyone else's, except I just have higher quality caps and better sounding shit inside of it. And so then with my amps, all my amps are fucking completely original. The only modification I have is on my 5150, I have a bias mod on it so that they can bias the tubes. And that's pretty much about it. Everything's pretty much fucking stock. You know what I mean? The only other super modified shit is my guitars. I believe no guitar should cost over $500. So all my guitars are cheap Squires, cheap Fenders, Mexican Fenders, or really cheap Gibsons, $500 Gibsons and shit. And with super fucking modified pots and pickups to be exactly the best sounding shit with Evertunes on them. So I guess that kind of covers it, right?
Yeah, totally. All right, here's one from Miami Dolphin, and that's his real name, by the way.
Awesome. First name, Miami. Last name, Dolphin.
I've seen his driver's license.
That's so hilarious.
Yeah, his parents did actually name him that. So,
wow.
What was it like being the sole producer on the Story So Far's work? Was there a lot of pressure to outdo the previous records every time?
So it's kind of interesting working with those guys. It's first record was one of the record where they're just completely new dudes, so they listen to everything I say. You know what I mean? So everything I said was applied. real smooth process, real fucking easy. And so then like that record does super well. So then we did the second record, and then the label was like, well, we should like, they're going to need someone to help them with songwriting. And so then it's like, all right, well, like, I can throw out some ideas and stuff like that. But then of course I'm just me at this point now. I was like, I'm the guy that they already made their record with. So like my ideas aren't considered like the good ideas anymore. You know what I mean? Like instead, like they're starting to listen to themselves and like are starting to like listen to me less and less. You know what I mean? So like as the processes has gone on, I've had less like influence in the songs and like the performances, like in the creation of like ideas like that, and more so limited to capturing sounds and doing like the best I can with the scenario that's presenting itself to me. You know what I mean? Whereas like I used to just like fucking completely be like, just come and use my studio, here we go. But like now it's like, oh, we want to go to a different studio, we want to do this. Like things have become more complicated, and like my hands are like more tied in what I can actually do. You know what I mean? So like it's like, I mean, it's not as ideal as before, but it's still just as fun. You know what I mean? It's just a different process.
I mean, I think any time that you're involved with one band for that long, that's kind of, it seems like that's the natural way that things go. Because totally. I've talked to some of my other friends who have been like the sole producer for a band's entire career, or 5 out of 6 records, and they kind of have said the same thing, that like as the band goes along, they become more and more independent in a way.
Yeah, like I would say like on the new record we're doing, like I would consider it like more so produced by their drummer, Ryan Torf. Like he's like one of the main, like his songs that he writes, I fucking love. Like he's just a really good songwriter, and his attention to detail is extremely, extremely good. And so like when I'll be like, I think it should go like this, I will turn to him to make sure that he thinks that's the right idea, as opposed to be like, oh, I think that this is how it's going to go, so it should go this way. You know what I mean? Like he knows what the fuck he's talking about with his songs, because he's got a good ear and a good aesthetic. You know what I mean? And like I value his opinion and his input. So like before I move on with any decision, like I will, out of everyone in the band, he's the one dude that I will verify that is stoked on it before I move forward with it. You know what I mean?
Yep, makes perfect sense. All right,
Life.
Here's one. Yes, life. Phil Pluscota's wondering, are you his best friend?
I love Phil. Phil's a good guy.
We love Phil. So, Marcos Santana Ruiz is wondering, the chapter of Sam's creative live on drum tuning using the Evans Torque key has been the most on point and easy to recreate out of all tuning videos, articles, podcasts I've ever encountered.
That's so
Is
sick.
there anything he could add to his already awesome explanation, or any new tips? So, hey, can you take something perfect and make it complicated?
Right,
I'm just kidding.
So funny. No, that's cool to hear. I really appreciate that, because like I've always been like, I don't know how to tune drums. You know what I mean? And so I've wanted to learn how to tune drums, like we talked about earlier. But I just figured it the fuck out. I just did what I thought sounded best. You know what I mean? And followed my own fucking ear and my own fucking technique. Like no one showed me the Evans key. Like I found that myself and like created that technique myself. So like basically, like just the brief overview of how I would tune up a drum set is that I would listen, and this is what I did with the New Story So Far record. We got really fucking detailed on this. This was actually really fun. So like, it's like, all right, the key of the song is D. Got it. So you learned this from Eric Valentine, because Eric Valentine's the fucking Dalai Lama of engineering. He's the best. So you want your kick drum to be your root note. So if it's in D, then you would have, let me pull up, I always have to use my auto-tune E effects in order, because I'm really bad at theory. So it's like, let me set it to D major right now. Okay, so D would be 1, E is 2, G sharp is 3, G is 4, A is 5. So I would want to tune my kick to a D, my rack tom to a G, and my snare to an A. So it would be 1, 4, and 5. That's how you would always do it. And the floor tom, I usually try to match with the kick. So they're like both like an octave of each other, but they sound like they'll probably hit the same octave, but they sound different, obviously, you know? So it's like floor tom is in D, kick is in D, snare is in A, rack tom is in G. So it's like, like it's hitting like a fucking octave, you know what I mean? Like if you're playing like a fucking power chord, you know, you got your root, your fourth, and your fifth. Right? That's what a power chord is, right? Root, fourth, fifth?
Yes.
So
no. Power chord is root fifth.
just root fifth, right? That's you're right. Root fifth and then the octave. So that's what a power chord is. Got it. So I want my snare to be the fifth and I want my kick to be the root. So I'll tune up the drums and I'll fucking go out there and I'll find the range that works on the drum key. So it'll be like on like the keys that I use right now, like the number is different for every single key. So like what number I say doesn't work. You have to like go to the lowest number possible where there is no fucking torque and it's just like flabbing back and forth, and then put it on the first one where like it'll click at the lowest torque, right? So then I'll be like, okay, great, let's check what this floor tom's at, and I'll get it into, I'll be like, okay, great, it works between the numbers 7 and 9. 7 is the lowest it can go, 9 is the highest it goes before it goes weird. So then I'll like be like, okay, great, let me hit it, and it's at a 7 right now, and it sounds close to D. What if I go up to an 8? Okay, like it's obviously way too high, that doesn't work. So then I'll just go back down to the 7, and that's going to be the closest possible to the key that I want, and it sounds fine. Great. And I do the same thing with the kick and the snare and everything. I find what range it sounds good at on its own, and then I try to apply those numbers to sound the closest to the key. And so this is where my drumbrella fucking rocks, is because once you get the fucking key, once you get the drum tuning right so that it sounds like the notes, then you'll be like, great, now my snare feels thin when I hit it in the room. So then I'll play with the height of my drumbrella until my snare is just popping and feels fucking, it feels like it's responding correctly in the room, because I've essentially changed the tuning of the room to accommodate to the tuning of the drum set.
Makes perfect sense.
Nerd shit.
So if you really want to get good at tuning drums, build a drumbrella, is what you're saying.
Well, if you really want to get good at tuning drums, learn, try to do root 4th and 5th for the drum tuning, and then do the best you can to like get the drums to sound right for the key of the song. And then if you don't have a drumbrella or anything, play with the placement of those drums in the room so that they sound the biggest, and then use the drums there, you know?
Makes perfect sense.
Yep, that's what I would do if I didn't have my drumbrella.
Okay, here's one from Tyler Rodriguez, which is recently
who's sitting right next to me.
Yeah, I know. Hi, Tyler. I can see you.
Good, yeah.
He can't hear me, but I can see him.
Yeah, he can't hear you. Yeah. It's so funny.
Wow, Tyler's on a podcast. He just spoke.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Tyler's URM podcast debut. So recently on the latest 100th, you moved from mixing with your usual hybrid setup to predominantly in the box. Was that a difficult or easy transition to make for yourself? Were you missing the use of any analog gear that you could just not find a suitable plug-in equivalent for?
So it's slightly a lie. I use my C2 on Mixbus because I use that on everything. But the only thing that I wasn't like, so basically, usually what I'll do is if I'm mixing, I'll have my parallel outboard setup, which will be like Distressors setup for drums, LA3A setup for guitars, and then 1176 setup for bass, the black ones, and then my Blue Stripe setup for vocals. And they're all stereo. So it's like ready to go. They're always patched on my patch bay. I can just like unmute those tracks and raise them up. So it's like, all right, great. I got the guitars that sound great, but now like they just don't sound thick enough and they're not cutting through enough. Raise the LA3A track, great. But instead of using the actual outboard, I just copied the exact settings and I used a fucking multimeter to make sure that they were the same fucking like decibel range and everything. So I made presets of them so that I could do easy recalls. And it was because like I was working on another record right after that, and so I was gonna have to fucking like have to patch things in all the time. So I was just like, fuck it, it's way easier just to have these plugins ready to go. And I was eventually gonna switch back over, but then when I did, it just sounded different and like sounded like I had already like done enough compensation to get like the low end to sound right, that if I actually used the outboard, the low end was like totally different. It was like even more intense. So it was like I had to kind of just commit to using the plug-in versions of my outboard. So I was using like the Arouser on drums and like the CLA 3A and CLA 76s for my parallel stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's one from Aaron Pace, which is, I want to know more about his drum parallel processing and how he gets his drum close mic so dope. Sam is the tops.
Thank you. What a nice guy. We talked about like, I talked about how like my kick and snare will fool me where I will think they are samples because they're so consistent. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So like a lot of people.
And let me just interrupt you real quick and say that on the records that I've engineered where people have liked the drum sound the most, that I've gotten the same effect in the studio where I've fooled myself into thinking that I have a sample on the snare when I don't.
You turn down the sample and nothing changes, and then you're like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And then you like you're like, wow, my close mic just like on its own, it doesn't sound like that, but in the mix, it just sounds like a fucking sample. Like, wow, that's crazy. Like, so a lot of like the impact that happens on like kick and snare is because I'm doing like a lot of like crazy EQ with the UTA, and then it'll be UTA into transient designer into distressors, and then that's the kick and snare tones. And like toms are just transient designers with EQ and nothing else on it. And so like I mentioned it earlier, but like my parallel processing on drums has like, it used to just be like one parallel bus, which was like an 1176. And then eventually I was like tired of that. So then I tried like an API 2500. And then I was like really into that for a while. And then I worked on like another session and I changed it to like, I started trying to use like actual outboard stuff and was using like my distressors or like a Alesis micro limiter or something like that. And so then like eventually then I'm like, I listened to an old record. I'm like, oh man, that one sounds good. Like I open up the session and it's like just the 1176. So then I would import that track into my template. And so now I have literally all my close mics have it's all my close mics, and then above them in my session, it's 6 parallel drum bus compressors. And so it's 3 of them. It's basically like it's the same track, just duplicated twice. So it's a send from my kick, snare, and toms duplicated 3 times, and then a send from all of the drums duplicated 3 times. And so that way I can be like, do I want to compress the drum bus or do I want to compress just the parallel? And the way that they're set, like I literally don't even know what the settings are. They're just like, I don't ever open the plugin and look at it. I literally just adjust the master bus that is sending to those channels, because I use master faders as well, so that I don't have to fuck with any of my sends. All my sends are at Unity, and I use the master to adjust how hard I'm hitting those sends. And so then I'll be like, great, let me raise up the 1176 one. Great, it sounds pumpy and fluffy. Let me raise up the distressor one. Now it sounds snappy and like a little bit more closer. Now let me raise up the Elijah M presser, and now it's like really thick and like really pumpy, and then all 3 of them together just like work, you know? So like it's for kick and snare, it's like a parallel 1176, parallel distressor, and parallel M presser. Then for the full drums, it's a parallel distressors, then it's parallel 2500, and then a parallel devil lock. And all of those are like, maybe they'll be 50-50, maybe they'll be 20, like some more than the others. Like it's completely different, and I have no idea what they're set to. I'm just fucking pushing faders in front of me until it sounds right. And then I look at my master bus and I'm making sure, I look at my compressor to the left and I make sure it's not hitting more than 40 dB, and then that's about it. I'm usually like hugging fucking 40 dB on my fucking SSL. So I'll just like, as I'm like printing masters, I'll be like pulling down my master fader and like pushing up the output. So it's like pulling down and pushing up simultaneously. Like I'm really big about that, like feathering. Like if you're going to pull one down, you pull the output up simultaneously, so there is no volume difference. And I can like hear when it hits the threshold and when like the negative artifacts start to become too overwhelming, you know?
Man, parallel devil lock is definitely something that I discovered in later years as a secret drum weapon.
It's great. Especially because, like, I mean, lots of drum sounds that I always used to love were using the Shure level lock. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh man, that dude Chad Blake is so fucking sick. Like, how do those Bad Plus drums sound the way that they do? Oh, it's because he's using one mic with a fucking devil lock on it. You know?
Yeah, it's I can't say enough good things about that. Here's one from Joseph Hewitt. I really like the airiness of Sam's overhead and cymbals. If you could ask him to run through his process from cymbal choice and miking and mixing, that would be sick.
Okay, so this is the one thing I wanted to mention about Story that I totally forgot. We fucking went through all the cymbals and we figured out what notes the cymbals were. So we made sure our cymbals were in the keys of songs as well too. So it'd be like, oh, that hi-hat is like a B flat. Like, can you use the other hi-hat that sounds more like a B? Great. Like, so I don't own any cymbals because drummers always fucking break my cymbals. So like I prefer Zildjian K cymbals because they just sound dark and beautiful and awesome. But I think a lot of what like is happening is that I don't use gates. And I don't use gates on like kick and snare. I don't use gates on like room mics or anything. And I have lots of parallel going on that you're physically hearing my room at all times. Like it's so compressed that like you will hear the actual decay and the actual sound of my room. You know what I mean? So like my cymbals, they sound like I'm always fighting to get the cymbals to sound like pokey but not harsh. You know what I mean? Like you don't want like them ice picking at you, but you want them to be like real fucking nice and real airy. So I've never been able to get cymbals to sound right unless I'm using them in the parallel compression with my fucking close mics. Like dudes who are like, I just use close mic parallel compression and that's it. I have to have the cymbals go to that compression too, so that they're pumping together, so it sounds natural to me. Otherwise, it sounds disconnected.
Okay, great. Thank you. Here's another one from Brian Hood. Sam, why is your cat so fucking badass as fuck?
So good. Dude, I wish my cat was actually famous. He is, like, everyone says this, like, about their own, like, child or whatever. Like, my child's the cutest. But, like, everyone says this about my cat. I have one of the cutest looking cats ever. And my cat should definitely be more famous than Grumpy Cat.
I just took a look at the picture of your cat that Brian posted in our group, and it's pretty cute.
Yeah, he's cute, man. So the thing that I've done recently is it's funny. I'm all about like consistency, right? So my Instagram stories, like I'm never like when Instagram came out with the story, it's like I'm not gonna use this shit. I use Instagram to post a photo. Like I'm not gonna like post some weird video today. Like this is weird. So I only use it to take videos of my cat, and that's it. And it's so funny because like so many people will message me and be like, your cat, I fucking love your cat. And so many people message me and are like, great, your fucking cat again. Like you're hella fucking annoying with your fucking cat. Like I'm so polarizing, you know what I mean? Like it's so 50-50 on who loves my cat and who fucking hates my cat, you know? Same with me. People who fucking love me and people who hate me, you know?
You get hate messages for your cat?
Oh yeah, people get annoyed about my cat, yeah.
That's weird. Like,
yeah, great, another cat video. Yeah,
dude, I can't believe that people take their time out of their day to send you hate about a fucking cat.
Right, dude? Because
that's the internet for you.
Yeah, exactly. They can't just close the Instagram story and go to the next one. You know what I mean? And then that's the other thing that people have complained about too, is like I'll post like 10 of them, so then they have to click the right of the screen like 10 times to like exit my story, and they're like, you just post like too many of them. It's like, fuck you, unfollow me then, you know? My fucking cat, who the fuck cares, dude? I'm gonna use this technology the way that I want to, and I'm gonna make my fucking cat famous through the process, okay?
Your cat deserves every bit of fame that comes his way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was a stray cat. He wandered into my studio one day, so that's how he's my cat.
Wow. So, and you're gonna make him famous. Man, it's proof that here in America, dreams can come true.
Right, dude, yeah.
So here's one from Sean Dorian, which is, how did you get that beautiful smack and delay out of the snare for the story so far, specifically for High Regard?
So I think, I'm not sure, there's like 3 songs, like the whole record is like using my snare, and then it has like, then all of a sudden it broke and it sounded weird. So then we switched to another snare. So I don't know which songs are which, but I'm pretty sure that he's probably referring to my 13-inch Yamaha snare, which it's funny because I use that on the Basement record too. And it's just like, it's so fucking smacky. It sounds fucking huge. And I, like, it was funny because, like, I was doing this whole new story record, and it's like, you know, he uses his drum set, and then, like, we'll switch between, like, my snares or his snares, whatever sounds best for the song. And so then, like, the other day when we had to do 2 new songs, he was just like, yo, can I just use your drum set? I'm like, yes, please, can you? Like, my drum set is dialed. It's ready to go. Like, here we go. And so he walked in, and, like, he was using his big 14-inch bell brass SJC snare, which is like, it's one of our most consistently used snares because like it's one that he loves, it's one that I love. It sounds fucking huge, but it like didn't sound right in the song. It just like sounded like too big and didn't sound like, I mean, just like, it just sounded kind of like dull and like not really like quick. So I was like, dude, let's use the 13-inch again. And like the second we hit it, it was just like, man, there's our fucking drum sound. Like, there's our story so far, drum sound. Like, it's just, that snare is just so smacky and so quick. And again, I tape the shit out of it so that when you hit it, it just goes smack, and that's it. No fucking decay, nothing else. So that like, and also like, if I were to mute the close mic, you would hear a very minimal change. It wouldn't be like, where did the snare go? Because the snare lives in every fucking mic that I'm like pushing up so hard in my room mics. You know what I mean? Like most of my snare sound is my room sound. It's not the close mic sound, you know?
I think that that's actually really, really important key point. And we say this to people a lot, but I feel like, you know, because on Nail the Mix, we do the mix competition every month, and we get over 500 mixes a month submitted. And really, I hear all the problems with people's mixes. And every mixer who's ever come on the podcast or Nail the Mix, or who I know personally, has always said that their snare sound or their drum sound has a lot more to do with the room mics and the overheads than the close mics.
Absolutely.
And the close mics are definitely important, obviously.
Yep.
But like the big sound, the decay, like the awesomeness,
the excitement, the tone,
the juice. That's all like in how you blend your rooms with the close. But it's if you play the close by itself, sometimes it'll just sound like a weird little smack.
Absolutely.
And I just encourage everybody to just listen to what Sam just said about his drum sounds and take that more seriously. Like,
and
especially Nail the Mix subscribers who get really good room tracks to work with, work on those rooms.
Yeah, Nolly's a good example of that too. Like a lot of his snare sound is that extra room decay. You know what I mean? And like that's where like when I hear his drum sound, I'm like, that snare sounds fucking great. And what I like about it is the decay and the ambience, which is what I like about my snares. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh man, his Beta 57 close mic sounds perfect. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not about the close mic at all, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And last question. This one's from Patrick Graff, which is, what was the process of designing your studio like the first time around when you renovated a few years ago? What were you looking to change, and how did you accomplish the changes you wanted to sonically? Any tips or pointers for someone looking to build out a space?
Okay, so space build out was like a little stressful, a little crazy. I can't even believe like I did it.
Always is. And did it take way longer than you thought it would?
No, actually it was really fucking short.
Wow.
So I, like, when I first got this place, like, it was like my 7th studio, and I was like, fuck it, like, we're gonna fucking build it, and we're gonna do, like, what I want to fucking do here, you know? And so I got this construction guy to do it, and I was like, I put down my deposit for the place, and I asked my landlord, I was like, yo, since I'm, like, filling out, like, since I'm putting down the deposit and signing, like, a 5-year lease on this, like, can you give me 1 free month, like, to get the place set up? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So I was like, great, we got 30 days, let's fucking build it. And so I remember, like, walking into the open space, and, like, the dude just being like, all right, man, like, so what do you want? And I was like, I want a big live room here, I want a big control room. And then he just, like, spray painted the ground and was like, great, this is what we'll do. And then we just built it, and that was it was it. So, like, I had the spaces right, and I did, like, a couple things. Like, I did one wall that's not parallel to, like, help my live room, so that, like, that helps with, like, no standing waves and all that kind of shit, right? Or no flood or echo and shit. So like I had been through enough studios where I was like, these sizes will, like, be comfortable for me, I'll be able to work in this. And so eventually my neighbor moved out of the unit next to us, and so then I built the second control room. And at this point I was like, let me hire a guy to, like, design, like, the acoustic material, because all I did before was just, like, hang 703 on the wall, and that was it. And so, like, it looks great, I really like the aesthetics, and I was like, great, I want to do the same thing to my room, so let's, like, I'm gonna redo my room. So that's when I built, like, the drumbrella and stuff, and, like, my room tone, like, totally improved. My low end, like, went through the roof. Low end totally increased. And, like, that's, like, the main difference between, like a Story So Far record today as opposed to, like, a Story So Far record in the early times, or, like, a basement record. Like, the drums have, like, a lot of harsh top overtone because, like, there was so much reflection inside of my room because it wasn't super dead. And, like, now the room, like, is dead, but it has enough wood and diffusion that, like, the decay is natural, and it sounds really fucking even and really fucking awesome, as opposed to, like, problematic and maybe, like, unbalanced, you know? Like, my room sounds really balanced now.
I'm impressed by how quickly you got it built, by the way.
Thank you.
Because in my experience and everything I know, studio build-outs take forever. Always longer than imagined. But I guess having that deadline makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and also, like one of my friends is building a studio right now, and it's just like it's been taking them months and months, and like the rooms are small too. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and that's the thing too, is like you'll get a big space and you're like, yeah, man, this is gonna be fucking awesome. And then you start putting up walls and you're like, fuck, this room is gonna be much smaller than I thought it was. Like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, because all of a sudden you partitioned it down like 3 times, you know? So but like, so we got 2 control rooms here now. Like my new control room is like way bigger, the one that I'm currently in. So I kind of like to like use this control room if I'm doing like DI guitars or like keyboards and stuff like that. And then I really like to use my regular room if I'm using drums and doing reamping and stuff. So I like to switch between my 2 control rooms, and I really like my second live room. My second live room is like smaller, but it's like got so much wood in there that it's like, I think if Dave Grohl was going to come here and record drums, he would prefer to record drums in the smaller room. That's kind of what I think. It's just like really quick and like really fucking like all the metal dudes who like do freelance here like love using that room because it's just, it sounds fucking badass, and like the low end is really good. It's really even. Like that's the main thing that I can describe is like all the treatment that I have has made like the frequency content like pretty even throughout.
I see. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on here. Yes, best friendship. Thank you.
Absolutely.
For taking time out of your day. I know that you are always doing stuff, always busy. So thank you so much for taking the time and being so open with our audience. And
my pleasure. I hope
you being you.
I hope people enjoy things and go out there and make some fucking good songs that inspire people to make fucking better music and the world a better fucking place, right?
That's right.
That's right. Well, thanks. I appreciate you doing this.
All right. Take it easy, dude.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by the 2017 URM Summit, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to spend 4 days with the next generation of audio professionals and special guests, including Andrew Wade, Kane Churko, Billy Decker, Fluff, Brian Hood, and many more. The inspiration, ideas, and friendship you'll get here are the things that you'll look back on as inflection points in your life. Learn more at urmsummit.com. To get in touch with the URM podcast, visit urm.com/podcast and subscribe today.